The Williams and Associates annual Christmas party was in full swing, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow across the hotel ballroom. I stood near the dessert table watching my colleagues dance and laugh, completely unaware of the storm about to break. Marcus Williams, my boss of 7 years, was already on his 4th glass of champagne. His face was flushed as he held court among the senior executives, probably bragging about another record year, conveniently forgetting who actually secured those billion-dollar contracts. I checked my phone again. 8:45 p.m. In exactly 15 minutes, the board's decision would become official. I had kept this secret for 3 months, playing my role perfectly while the pieces fell into place. Sarah. Marcus's voice boomed across the room. Come here for a moment. I took a deep breath, smoothed my black designer dress, the one I'd bought specifically for tonight, and walked over. The crowd parted slightly, sensing something was about to happen. Marcus's smile was cruel, his eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. I've been waiting for the perfect moment to do this, he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. You're fired. The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned to me, some shocked, others pitying, a few secretly pleased. I saw Janet from accounting cover her mouth, while Tom from legal suddenly became very interested in his shoes. Any particular reason? I asked calmly, though my heart was pounding. Marcus swirled his champagne, clearly enjoying the drama. Incompetence. Insubordination. Take your pick. The truth is, you're just not executive material. Never were. I thought about the countless nights I'd worked late, the weekends sacrificed, the family events missed while I carried this company on my shoulders. For 7 years I had been the shadow force behind Williams and Associates' success, writing proposals Marcus claimed as his own, closing deals he took credit for, building relationships he exploited. I see, I said quietly. Should I leave now, or would you like to humiliate me further? Marcus laughed, that booming, self-satisfied laugh I'd grown to hate. You can finish your dessert first. Consider it my Christmas gift. Just then the grand doors opened. Elizabeth Williams, Marcus's wife and majority shareholder of Williams and Associates, walked in wearing a stunning red gown. Her timing was perfect, exactly as planned. Sarah, darling, she called out, moving through the crowd with graceful determination. I just got off the phone with the board. Congratulations on becoming CEO. The champagne glass slipped from Marcus's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. What? He choked out, all color draining from his face. Elizabeth smiled, but there was steel behind it. Oh, didn't you know? Sarah has been instrumental in exposing your creative accounting practices. The board voted unanimously this evening. You're being removed as CEO, effective immediately. Marcus stumbled backward, grabbing a chair for support. That's impossible. I own this company. Actually, I said, finally allowing myself to smile, you own 30%. Your wife owns 55% and I now own 15%, thanks to the shares Elizabeth sold me 3 months ago. The truth was, Elizabeth had known about Marcus's embezzlement for months. The private jets he claimed as business expenses, the shell companies he created to siphon off profits, the offshore accounts growing fat with stolen money. She had approached me privately, having watched my work ethic and integrity for years. This is a joke, Marcus sputtered, looking wildly around the room. Elizabeth, you can't do this to me. I'm your husband. And you've been stealing from our company for years, Elizabeth replied coldly. Sarah caught it all, every transaction, every fake account, every penny you tried to hide. The FBI has already been notified. Security appeared at Marcus's elbows, summoned silently by Elizabeth's subtle signal. As they led him toward the door, he looked back at me, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. You'll regret this, he spat. Both of you will regret this. I watched him go, feeling 7 years of suppressed anger and frustration finally lift from my shoulders. Elizabeth linked her arm through mine, and together we faced the stunned crowd. Well, she announced brightly, I believe we still have a Christmas party to enjoy. And now we have even more to celebrate. The room erupted in applause, hesitant at first, then growing stronger. People who had ignored me for years suddenly rushed forward with congratulations. Janet from accounting was practically crying with joy, while Tom from legal was already trying to schedule a meeting. I accepted their good wishes graciously, but my mind was already racing ahead. Tomorrow the real work would begin. I had plans for Williams and Associates, big plans. But tonight I would savor this moment, this perfect Christmas gift of justice served. Elizabeth squeezed my arm gently. Ready to make your first speech as CEO? I smiled, reaching for a fresh glass of champagne. I've been ready for 7 years. The next morning I arrived at the office early, before the sun had even risen over the city skyline. The Williams and Associates building looked different somehow. No longer a monument to Marcus's ego, but a canvas for the changes I planned to make. The security guard did a double take as I walked in. "Miss Turner?" "Madam CEO." He fumbled with his clipboard, clearly unsure of the protocol. "Just Sarah is fine, George," I smiled, sliding my new executive access card through the reader. "How's Amy doing in college?" His face lit up. "She's doing great. That scholarship program you recommended, it changed her life." What George didn't know was that I'd been anonymously funding several employee scholarship programs for years, using my bonuses while Marcus slashed benefits to pad his own pockets. The executive floor was empty and dark when I stepped out of the elevator. I walked past my old office, where I'd spent countless nights working while Marcus took credit for my successes. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I approached the CEO's office. My office now. Inside, Marcus's presence still lingered. Golf trophies lined the shelves, expensive artwork covered the walls, and a photo of him shaking hands with the governor sat prominently on the desk. I started putting everything in boxes, erasing his mark on this space. "Need some help?" I turned to find Elizabeth standing in the doorway, already dressed for business in a sharp navy suit. "I thought I'd get an early start," I said, carefully wrapping another trophy in paper. Elizabeth closed the door behind her. "The press release goes out in an hour. Marcus's arrest will be public knowledge by lunch." I nodded, thinking about the chaos that would follow. "How are you holding up?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. 25 years of marriage and I never saw it, or maybe I didn't want to see it. All those times he belittled you, took credit for your work. I should have stepped in sooner. "You did what you had to do," I assured her. "We needed concrete evidence. If we'd moved too soon, he might have destroyed everything." A notification popped up on my phone, the first of many emergency meetings scheduled for today. The department heads would be arriving soon, all wondering about their futures under new leadership. "They're scared," Elizabeth said, reading my expression. "Marcus cultivated a culture of fear and favoritism. They don't know what to expect." I walked to the window, looking out over the city slowly coming to life. "Then we'll show them something different. Transparency. Merit-based advancement. No more boys' club making decisions over golf and whiskey." Elizabeth smiled. "That's why I chose you. You don't just want to run the company, you want to transform it." The first employees were starting to arrive, their faces tense as they hurried to their desks. News of last night's events had spread fast. I could see them gathering in small groups, whispering, speculating about what would happen next. "Did you see the files I sent over?" I asked Elizabeth. She nodded. "Marcus's inner circle. All the executives who helped him hide the embezzlement. The evidence is overwhelming. By the end of today they'll all be gone," I said firmly. "We're cleaning house completely." Just then my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus's number. "You think you've won? This isn't over. I built this company. You're nothing without me." I showed the message to Elizabeth, who shook her head in disgust. "He still doesn't get it, does he? You're the one who built this company while he played golf and stole money." Speaking of money, I pulled up some files on my laptop. "Wait until you see where else he was hiding funds. The forensic accountants are going to have a field day." The office was filling up now. Through the glass walls, I could see people stealing glances at the CEO's office, surprised to see lights on so early. Many of them had never seen Marcus arrive before 10. "Ready to face them?" Elizabeth asked as our first meeting approached. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Time to show them what real leadership looks like. The next few hours would be crucial. We had to stabilize the company, reassure clients, and begin dismantling Marcus's corrupt empire. But looking at the sunrise painting the sky in shades of promise, I knew one thing for certain: Williams and Associates would never be the same. Neither would I. 1 year later, I stood at the podium during our annual shareholders meeting, presenting results that even I found remarkable. Williams and Associates, now renamed Turner Global Solutions, had not just survived the transition, it had thrived. Our profits have increased by 142% since last year, I announced to the packed auditorium. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high, and our new ethical business practices have attracted partnerships with Fortune 500 companies that previously wouldn't work with us. In the front row, Elizabeth beamed with pride. Behind her sat our newly diverse board of directors, no longer an exclusive club of Marcus's golf buddies, but a group of accomplished professionals chosen for their expertise and integrity. As I concluded my presentation, my phone buzzed quietly. A news alert. Former CEO Marcus Williams sentenced to 15 years for embezzlement and fraud. I allowed myself a small smile before continuing. The trial had been brutal, with Marcus attempting to drag my name through the mud at every opportunity. But the evidence was ironclad, and his own arrogance had been his undoing. After the meeting, I returned to my office, now a bright open space with walls covered in employee recognition awards rather than golf trophies. On my desk sat a framed photo of our new scholarship program's first graduating class, including George, the security guard's daughter Amy. Elizabeth knocked on my door, champagne bottle in hand. I think this calls for a celebration. As she poured, I noticed the evening news playing silently on my office TV. Marcus's face appeared, looking haggard as he was led away in handcuffs. The headline read, "Disgraced CEO claims conspiracy as prison sentence begins." "He still doesn't understand what he lost," Elizabeth said, following my gaze. "It was never about the money." He was right. In his desperate attempts to maintain control, Marcus had lost everything: his company, his freedom, and most importantly, the respect of everyone who knew him. "Have you seen the latest employee feedback?" I asked, pulling up the survey results. 91% say they feel valued and heard. Last year under Marcus, it was 23%. Elizabeth raised her glass. "That's because you lead with integrity, not fear. You've created something remarkable here, Sarah." A knock at the door interrupted us. Janet from accounting, now our CFO, entered with an urgent expression. "Sarah, you need to see this," she said, handing me a tablet. "Marcus's old files. We found something else." I scanned the documents, my eyes widening. Even from prison, Marcus had tried one last desperate move. He'd attempted to transfer company assets to a hidden account just before his arrest. "The transfer failed," Janet explained, "because you had already implemented those new security protocols. The ones everyone complained about at first." I remembered the resistance I'd faced when overhauling our financial systems. Change is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary. "Should we press additional charges?" Elizabeth asked. I thought for a moment, then shook my head. "Let it go. He's already lost everything. We have more important things to focus on. Like our new employee development program launching next month. Or the charitable foundation we'd established to help underprivileged students pursue business degrees. Or the mentorship initiative supporting women in leadership roles." As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows through my office windows, I thought about that Christmas party a year ago. Marcus had tried to humiliate me, to break me in front of everyone. Instead, he had given me the opportunity to show what real leadership looks like. My phone buzzed again, a message from Amy, George's daughter. "Just got my business degree. Thank you for believing in me." I smiled, remembering all the times Marcus had called me not executive material. He had been right about one thing. I wasn't executive material. I was something better. A leader who understood that true success comes not from taking but from lifting others up. Elizabeth raised her glass again. "To the future?" "To the future," I agreed. "And to karma." Outside my office, I could hear the busy sounds of a thriving company. Phones ringing, people laughing, ideas being shared freely without fear. This was my real revenge. Not destroying Marcus, but building something better in his place. As I sipped my champagne, I glanced at the company's new mission statement mounted on my wall. "Success through integrity, innovation, and inclusion." Below it hung a small plaque with a quote I'd chosen personally. "The best revenge is not revenge at all. It's success." Marcus had fired me at a Christmas party thinking he was ending my career. Instead, he had set me free to create something he could never understand. A company where success was measured not just in profits but in people. And that was worth more than all the golf trophies in the world. Just when I thought everything was settled, a letter arrived that would shake the very foundation we'd built. It was hand-delivered, marked confidential for Sarah Turner's eyes only. Inside was a document that made my blood run cold. Before his arrest, Marcus had secretly sold 25% of the company shares to his brother, James Williams, a man just as ruthless as Marcus but twice as clever. "Miss Turner," James's smooth voice came from my office doorway. I looked up to find him standing there in an expensive suit, wearing the same arrogant smile Marcus used to have. "I believe we need to talk about the future of this company." Elizabeth rushed into my office moments later, face pale. "Sarah, did you see the filing? James is challenging your position as CEO. He's called for an emergency board meeting." I stood up slowly, my mind racing. We had been so focused on Marcus, we'd missed his brother moving pieces in the shadows. James had been waiting for this moment, letting us think we'd won while he gathered support from old board members who'd survived our initial cleanup. "He's claiming the share transfer was legal," Elizabeth continued, "and with 25%, plus the support of 3 board members. He could force a vote," I finished. "The perfect revenge. Marcus's brother taking back control, undoing everything we'd built." But James had made one critical mistake. He was so focused on the shares and board votes that he'd overlooked something crucial. Something I discovered in those final files Janet brought me. I picked up my phone and dialed. "Janet, remember that hidden account we found? Get me everything. And I mean everything." James wanted to play? Fine. He was about to learn why his brother lost everything. The real war for Turner Global Solutions was about to begin. The Harrison Group's glass and steel headquarters towered over downtown Manhattan, a monument to my family's success, or so they claimed. I stood in my Uncle Richard's office, my resume clutched in trembling hands, watching him tear apart my dreams with the same casual cruelty he'd shown since I was a child. "Marketing degree from a state school?" He smirked, barely glancing at the carefully curated portfolio I'd spent months preparing. "This is a global investment firm, not some small-town advertising agency." I forced myself to remain calm, though my heart was racing. "I graduated summa cum laude, Uncle Richard. I've already built a successful private consulting business dash." "Consulting?" He laughed, the sound echoing off his mahogany-paneled walls. "You mean that little online venture you run from your apartment? Please, Alexandra, this is Wall Street. We deal with serious money here." If he only knew that my little online venture had quietly grown into Summit Enterprises, one of the most successful private investment firms in the country. Operating entirely through shell companies and private holdings, I'd built a $2 billion empire while my family still thought I was designing websites from my sofa. "The position is already filled anyway," my cousin James announced, strolling in without knocking. His custom suit probably cost more than what they thought I made in a year. I recommended someone from my Harvard Business School class. Much more qualified. Of course he had. James had been undermining me since we were children, always ensuring he was seen as the successful one, the worthy heir to the Harrison legacy. He'd never forgiven me for outscoring him on every test in school, even though our grandfather had paid for his private tutors while I studied alone. Speaking of qualified, Uncle Richard leaned back in his leather chair. "We're meeting with the Montgomery account team today. Their mysterious CEO is finally sending a representative to discuss expanding their investment portfolio." My pulse quickened slightly. The Montgomery Group was actually one of my shell companies, controlling over $50 million in Harrison Group investments. They had no idea that the elusive CEO they'd been trying to meet for months was sitting right in front of them. "Biggest client we've landed this year," James bragged, adjusting his Rolex. "Though I doubt you'd understand the complexities of managing that kind of wealth, cousin." I thought about the meeting scheduled for later that afternoon, where my chief financial officer would be representing Montgomery Group's interests. About the documents in my briefcase that could change everything. "You should focus on something more appropriate to your skills," Uncle Richard said dismissively. "Perhaps that little design business of yours. Leave the real finance to those who understand it." I stood up slowly, gathering my portfolio. "You're right, Uncle Richard. I should focus on my own business interests." "That's the spirit," he said, already turning to his computer. "James, walk your cousin out. We don't want her getting lost on her way to the lobby." As we walked through the trading floor, James couldn't resist one final dig. You know, Alexandra, it's actually good you're not joining us. The Harrison name means something in this industry. We can't risk having it associated with lesser achievements. I stopped at the elevator, turning to face him. You're absolutely right, James. The Harrison name does mean something. But maybe not what you think it means. He frowned slightly, catching something in my tone. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out soon enough, I said as the elevator doors opened. Good luck with the Montgomery meeting. I hear their CEO can be quite demanding. The confusion on his face was just a preview of what was to come. In less than 2 hours, the Harrison Group would learn exactly who they'd just rejected. And by the end of the day, they'd understand that success doesn't always wear a designer suit or come with an Ivy League degree. Sometimes it arrives quietly, builds patiently, and strikes when they least expect it. As I walked out of the building that had long symbolized my family's power, I smiled, knowing that power was about to shift dramatically. My phone buzzed, a text from my CFO. Everything ready for the Montgomery meeting. Should we proceed as planned? I typed back a single word: execute. The game I'd been playing for years was about to enter its final phase. The Harrison Group was about to learn that they hadn't just rejected a job applicant, they'd insulted their biggest client. And in the world of high finance, that was a mistake they couldn't afford to make. I watched from my private office across the street as the Montgomery Group's sleek black SUV pulled up to the Harrison Group headquarters. My CFO, Sarah Mitchell, stepped out looking every inch the power player in her Armani suit. For 5 years she'd been my public face, attending meetings I couldn't without revealing my identity. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Where did you disappear to? You're missing the show. Our biggest client is here. I smiled, remembering his condescending smirk from earlier. Your biggest client? Are you sure about that? Through my office windows I could see the conference room where the meeting would take place. Uncle Richard was already there, straightening his tie nervously. James paced behind him, probably rehearsing the pitch he'd spent weeks preparing. Neither of them had any idea what was about to happen. Ms. Mitchell for the Montgomery Group. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. The live stream is ready whenever you'd like to watch. I'd had cameras installed in the Harrison Group's conference room months ago. Legally, of course, through a security contract they'd signed without reading the fine print. Another lesson they were about to learn about attention to detail. Begin recording, I said, settling into my chair as the meeting began to unfold on my screen. Welcome to Harrison Group. Uncle Richard's voice boomed with false confidence. We're honored to finally meet with Montgomery's leadership. Sarah took her seat at the head of the table, my usual spot for video conferences. The honor is ours, Mr. Harrison. Though I should correct you on one point. I'm not here to discuss expanding our portfolio. James's smile faltered slightly. I don't understand. The meeting request was to inform you of some changes, Sarah continued, opening her briefcase. The Montgomery Group will be terminating all investments with Harrison Group, effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Uncle Richard's face drain of color as Sarah placed the termination documents on the table. This must be some mistake, he stammered. We've managed your investments brilliantly. The returns are mediocre at best, Sarah cut in. But this isn't about returns. This is about respect. James leaned forward, his arrogance showing through despite his confusion. Respect? We've shown nothing but respect to Montgomery's interests. Really? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Is that why you rejected your CEO's niece for employment this morning? The room froze. I watched James's jaw drop as understanding began to dawn. Uncle Richard gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white. What are you talking about? He managed. Sarah pulled out her tablet, turning it to show them my picture. Alexandra Harrison, founder and CEO of the Montgomery Group, along with several other investment firms you've been desperate to work with. That's impossible, James whispered, but I could see him putting the pieces together. She runs a small consulting business. A cover, Sarah smiled. One that allowed her to build an empire while you were all too busy looking down on her to notice what she was creating. Uncle Richard stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. Where is she? I need to speak with her immediately. I'm afraid Ms. Harrison is unavailable, Sarah replied coolly. She's in a meeting with Sterling Financial. You know, your biggest competitor? They're very interested in acquiring the assets we're withdrawing from Harrison Group. My phone was already buzzing with frantic messages. James, please tell me this isn't true. Uncle Richard, we need to talk. Immediately. Aunt Patricia, what have you done? Cousin Elizabeth, OMG, is this why you never came to our investment seminars? I ignored them all, watching as Sarah continued to dismantle their world. The termination will be announced publicly tomorrow morning, she was saying. Given that Montgomery Group represents roughly 40% of Harrison Group's managed assets, you might want to prepare your shareholders. 40%? James collapsed into his chair. But that would mean that your cousin has been keeping you afloat for years? Sarah finished for him. Yes. Ironic, isn't it? The family member you dismissed as unqualified was actually your largest client. I watched Uncle Richard age years in minutes as he realized the implications. The Harrison Group stock would plummet once the news broke. Their other clients would panic. The empire he'd built on arrogance and nepotism was about to crumble. Please, he said, his voice barely a whisper. We can fix this. Whatever Alexandra wants. What she wanted, Sarah gathered her documents, was a chance to work with her family, to contribute to the company her grandfather helped build. Instead, you treated her like an embarrassment. Actions, Mr. Harrison, have consequences. As Sarah stood to leave, James made one last desperate attempt. Wait, at least let me talk to her. We're family. Sarah paused at the door. Funny, that's not what you said this morning when you were mocking her state school degree. But I'll pass along your message. Though I should warn you, Miss Harrison has a very long memory and very little patience for people who underestimate her. I watched them sit there shell-shocked as Sarah left the room. Within minutes, my phone was flooded with messages from other family members. Word was spreading fast. My Aunt Patricia just heard what happened. We should talk. Cousin Elizabeth, can you help me get a job at Montgomery? Uncle Richard again, please call me. We can work this out. I shut off my phone and turned to the window, looking out at the city I'd quietly conquered while they were busy doubting me. The Harrison Group sign glinted in the afternoon sun, but by this time tomorrow their stock would be in free fall. Ms. Harrison, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. Sterling Financial is on line 1. They're very interested in discussing the acquisition opportunity. I smiled, thinking of all the times my family had excluded me from their business discussions, claiming I wouldn't understand the complexities of high finance. Put them through, I said. It's time to show the Harrisons what a state school graduate can really do. The next morning I arrived at my office just as the markets opened. The Harrison Group stock was already down 30%, and business news channels were running constant coverage of the Montgomery Group's withdrawal. Harrison Group faces crisis as major client pulls out. Family drama behind billion-dollar breakup. Wall Street dynasty in turmoil. My assistant appeared with my morning coffee. Your family is in the lobby, Ms. Harrison. All of them. I glanced at the security feed. Sure enough, the entire Harrison clan had assembled, Uncle Richard, James, Aunt Patricia, and even cousins who hadn't spoken to me in years. They looked decidedly less polished than usual, their designer clothes wrinkled from a sleepless night. Send them up, I said, straightening my jacket. It's time we had a proper family meeting. They filed into my office like chastened schoolchildren, their usual arrogance replaced by desperate uncertainty. The view from my penthouse suite, significantly higher than Uncle Richard's office, wasn't lost on them. Alexandra, Uncle Richard started, his voice hoarse. We need to talk about this. Now you want to talk? I gestured to the seats around my conference table. Please sit. I'm sure you have questions about my little online venture. James winced at his own words thrown back at him. How long have you been planning this? Planning? I pulled up financial projections on the wall screen. I've been building Montgomery Group for 7 years. Right under your noses, while you were all too busy mocking my career choices to notice. But why the deception? Aunt Patricia asked. Why not tell us? Would you have believed me? I countered. When have any of you ever taken me seriously? You couldn't even be bothered to read my resume properly yesterday. Uncle Richard leaned forward. We can fix this. The Harrison Group is your family's legacy too. Legacy? I laughed. Let's talk about legacy. When grandfather died, you all divided up his company like vultures. Made sure I got nothing because I didn't fit your image of success. That's not true, James protested weakly. Really? I pressed a button and audio recordings filled the room. Years of family meetings, casual conversations, all documenting their systematic exclusion and mockery of my choices. She's not Harrison material. Can't trust her with real responsibility. Better keep her away from the important clients. I watched their faces as they heard their own voices, their own cruelty played back to them. I kept every recording, I said quietly. Every email, every snide comment. While you were building walls to keep me out, I was building something bigger than all of you. What do you want? Uncle Richard asked finally. Name your price. I stood up, walking to the window. 3 hours ago, Sterling Financial made an offer to buy the Harrison Group. Given your stock price this morning, it's more than generous. You can't be serious, James exploded. Sell to our biggest competitor? Actually, I'm not selling to your competitor. I turned back to face them. I'm selling to myself. Sterling Financial is another one of my companies. The silence that followed was absolute. They stared at me, finally understanding the scope of what I'd built while they weren't watching. The papers are here. I placed a thick folder on the table. Sign and the Harrison Group will be absorbed into my organization. Refuse and I'll withdraw all Montgomery Group investments immediately. Your choice. You're destroying our family, Aunt Patricia whispered. No, I corrected her. I'm saving it. Under my leadership, the Harrison Group will become what it should have been, a company built on merit, not nepotism. Where success is earned, not inherited. One by one they signed. Even James, his hand shaking as he surrendered his birthright to the cousin he'd underestimated for so long. What happens now? Uncle Richard asked, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Now. I collected the signed papers. Now you all get to experience what I did. Starting from the bottom, proving your worth. Those who can adapt will survive. Those who can't. I shrugged. There's always the family's little online ventures to fall back on. They left my office defeated, their empire now mine. As the door closed behind them, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Harrison Group acquired by Sterling Financial. Wall Street dynasty under new leadership. I sat at my desk, looking at the photo of my grandfather that I kept hidden in my drawer. He'd always told me that true success wasn't about having the right name. It was about having the right vision. Was this what you meant, Grandpa? I whispered to his image. About building something that would make them all pay attention? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Harrison? The Harrison Group's executive team is waiting for their new assignments. I smiled, tucking the photo away. Tell them their new CEO is on her way. It's time they learned how a state school graduate runs a real business. The next few months transformed the Harrison Group. Under my leadership, old hierarchies crumbled. James found himself working entry-level analysis, learning the business properly for the first time. Uncle Richard was relegated to a minor advisory role, watching as I implemented changes he'd resisted for years. Some family members adapted, finally showing the potential they'd always claimed to have. Others resigned, unable to handle working for the cousin they'd once dismissed. But all of them learned a valuable lesson about judging someone's worth by their appearance. The invitation to my sister Victoria's wedding sat on my desk like an elegantly wrapped insult. Black tie required, minimum gift value $500, was embossed in gold beneath the RSVP details. It was exactly the kind of ostentatious display Victoria loved. All show, no substance. I ran my fingers over the expensive paper, thinking about the conversation we'd had last week at our parents' house. Listen, Emma, Victoria had said, her voice dripping with fake concern. I know things have been difficult for you since you left the family business, but this wedding is going to be featured in Modern Bride, and James's family is very particular about appearances. James Parker, her fiancé, was a rising executive at Meridian Technologies. Or at least that's what Victoria thought. What she didn't know was that I'd acquired Meridian 3 months ago through my investment firm, Aurora Capital. Not that anyone in my family knew I owned one of the largest tech investment companies in the country. I understand, I'd replied quietly, watching her fidget with her massive engagement ring. So maybe. She'd hesitated, perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass. Maybe it's best if you don't come. I mean, what would you even wear? And the gift requirements. Our mother, sitting nearby and pretending not to listen, had winced but said nothing. She'd perfected the art of staying silent when Victoria showed her true colors. Now, sitting in my private office on the top floor of Aurora Tower, I looked at the latest acquisition reports from Meridian. James had no idea that tomorrow's routine meeting with the CEO was actually with me. He'd never met the elusive E.J. Morgan who'd bought the company. I preferred to work through intermediaries, keeping my identity hidden behind carefully constructed corporate veils. My phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. About the wedding. I'm serious, Emma. No discount store dresses or cheap gifts. Better to just skip it. I set the phone down and turned to the window looking out over the city skyline. 3 of the buildings I could see belonged to my portfolio companies. Not bad for someone Victoria considered too poor to attend her wedding. Miss Morgan. My assistant Michael appeared at the door. Mr. Parker has arrived for his pre-meeting. He's in the small conference room. Thank you, Michael. And Victoria's wedding planner. Called to confirm your anonymous donation. The $100,000 covers all remaining expenses, but as requested, they think it's from James's family. I smiled, thinking of Victoria's reaction when she learned her perfect wedding was being funded by the sister she deemed too poor to attend. But that would come later. Miss Morgan. Michael hesitated. Are you sure you want to do the reveal this way? At the rehearsal dinner. I stood up, straightening my Chanel suit. Not that my family would recognize the subtle elegance of true luxury. They preferred obvious brands and flashy labels. Victoria spent our entire lives making sure everyone knew she was the successful sister, I said quietly. Tomorrow she'll learn what success really looks like. The small conference room was designed to intimidate. All glass and chrome and spectacular city views. James Parker sat nervously at the table reviewing his notes. He'd been trying to arrange this meeting for weeks, hoping to impress his mysterious new CEO. Mr. Parker, I said from the doorway, watching as he jumped to his feet. Thank you for coming in early. Of course, I'm sorry, I don't actually know the CEO's name. They're quite private. Indeed they are, I agreed, taking a seat. Tell me, how's the wedding planning going? He blinked, surprised by the personal question. Very well. My fiancé has excellent taste. Though, he laughed nervously, between us, I'm a bit worried about the cost. She has very high expectations. And her sister? I asked casually. I understand she's not invited? James shifted uncomfortably. Victoria feels. That is her sister's situation. It's complicated. Life often is, I murmured, opening a folder. Now about your position at Meridian. Your performance reviews are interesting. For the next hour, I led him through a detailed discussion of his work, watching him grow increasingly uncomfortable as it became clear how much I knew about his tendency to take credit for others' innovations. One more thing, I said as he stood to leave. The rehearsal dinner tomorrow night. I'll be attending. I'm sorry. He looked confused. It's family only. Oh, I think you'll find I qualify. I smiled. After all, I'm the sister Victoria thinks is too poor to attend her wedding. The color drained from his face as understanding dawned. You're Emma? You're E.J. Morgan. Indeed, I confirmed, enjoying his shock. But let's keep that our little secret until tomorrow night. I so hate to steal focus from the bride before her big day. As he stumbled out of the conference room, I turned back to the window. Victoria had always loved being the center of attention, crafting her perfect life story for everyone to admire. Tomorrow night, at her carefully choreographed rehearsal dinner, she'd learn that some stories have surprise endings. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Victoria. I've told everyone you're working abroad and couldn't make it. It's better this way. No one needs to know about your situation. I took a deep breath, thinking about the next 24 hours. Victoria had spent years building her image as the successful sister, while I quietly built an actual empire. Tomorrow she'd learn the difference. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's waiting for the perfect moment to prove yourself right. The St. Regis Hotel's grand ballroom was transformed for Victoria's rehearsal dinner, dripping with crystal chandeliers and white orchids. I arrived deliberately late, wearing a simple black Valentino dress that probably cost more than the entire decorating budget. Not that Victoria would recognize true luxury. She preferred things that screamed their price tags. From my position near the entrance, I could see James at the bar, downing his second scotch in 20 minutes. He kept glancing nervously at the door, his perfect corporate facade cracking slightly. Victoria, holding court among her bridesmaids, hadn't noticed her fiancé's distress. "I'm sorry, miss." A wedding planner approached me with a clipboard. "This is a private event." "Emma Morgan," I said quietly, "though I believe I'm listed under uninvited sister." Her eyes widened in recognition. Not of my name on the guest list, but of my face from the business magazines she'd probably seen. Before she could speak, Victoria spotted me. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, rushing over. "I specifically told you." "Hello, Victoria," I interrupted calmly. "Lovely venue. The orchids are a nice touch, though perhaps a bit obvious for a winter wedding." She flushed, probably remembering how she'd mocked my suggestion of using rare winter blooms instead. "You need to leave. This dinner is for successful people, not." She gestured vaguely at me. "Whatever it is you do." "Victoria," our mother appeared, looking uncomfortable. "Surely we can." "No, Mom," Victoria cut her off. "I will not have my perfect evening ruined by." She paused as James appeared beside her, his face pale. "Darling, tell security to escort my sister out." James tugged at his collar, loosening his tie slightly. "Actually, Victoria, about that, there's something you should know." "Mr. Parker," I said smoothly, enjoying his discomfort. "How was your meeting with the CEO yesterday?" The color drained from his face completely. Victoria looked between us, confusion replacing anger. "What CEO? James, what is she talking about?" Just then Michael appeared at my side. "Ms. Morgan, I have those documents you requested about the Meridian acquisition." "Morgan?" Victoria's voice rose slightly. "Your last name is Stewart." "Actually," I smiled, taking the folders from Michael, "I changed it legally when I started Aurora Capital. E.J. Morgan sounds better in boardrooms than Emma Stewart." The silence that followed was delicious. Victoria's perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing shock. Our mother's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. "Aurora Capital," she whispered. "The investment firm that bought Meridian Technologies?" "Among other companies," I confirmed. "James has been trying to meet with his mysterious CEO for weeks. We had quite an interesting chat yesterday." Victoria turned to James, her voice shrill. "What is she talking about?" "Your sister," he said weakly, "is my boss. She owns Meridian. She's E.J. Morgan." The wedding planner, who had been hovering nearby, suddenly looked like she might faint. After all, E.J. Morgan was the anonymous donor who had saved the wedding when Victoria's budget spiraled out of control. "That's impossible," Victoria stammered. "Emma runs some tiny online business. She can barely afford rent." "Actually," I opened one of the folders, "I own this hotel, and the building where Meridian's headquarters is located, and about 30 other properties through Aurora Capital. That tiny online business was just a cover." Our father chose that moment to join the group, his face darkening as he realized who I was. "You've been lying to us? All these years?" "No," I corrected him. "I simply let you believe what you wanted to believe. Just like you let Victoria treat me like a failure because it made her feel better about herself." The ballroom had gone quiet, guests sensing the drama unfolding. Victoria's perfect rehearsal dinner was quickly becoming the kind of event people would gossip about for years. "The wedding," Victoria suddenly gasped. "The anonymous donor who covered the extra expenses. That was you?" I smiled, remembering her excitement when the wedding planner announced that James's family had secretly paid for everything. "Consider it my gift to you, sister dear. Though I'm surprised. I thought you didn't want any charity from poor relatives." James looked like he might be sick. After all, he'd spent months pretending his family was covering wedding costs he couldn't afford, never knowing the money came from the CEO he was trying to impress. "Why?" Victoria whispered, tears threatening to ruin her expensive makeup. "Why reveal this now?" I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. "Because you needed to learn that success isn't about appearances. It's about building something real. Something that lasts. While you were busy playing the perfect socialite, I was creating an empire." Our mother touched my arm hesitantly. But all those family dinners when Victoria mocked your work. I let her, I said simply. Because every time she underestimated me, it reminded me why I chose to build something quietly, without the need for constant validation. The wedding planner appeared again, clutching her tablet. Ms. Morgan, about tomorrow's ceremony. Everything will proceed as planned, I assured her. My sister's wedding will be exactly as she dreamed, though perhaps with a slight adjustment to the seating chart. Victoria's face crumpled slightly. You're still coming? Of course, I smiled. After all, what kind of CEO would I be if I missed my employee's wedding? The morning of Victoria's wedding dawned crisp and clear, perfect for the winter wonderland theme she'd chosen. I sat in my private office at the St. Regis, reviewing the final guest list while the chaos of wedding preparations echoed through the halls. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I called, already knowing who it would be. Victoria entered, still in her preparation robe, her perfect composure finally cracked. We need to talk. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, noting how different she looked from the sister who'd banned me from her wedding just days ago. Amazing what a little perspective could do. The anonymous donations, she started, her voice small. The venue upgrades, the premium flowers, the last-minute additions. You paid for everything? Yes, I confirmed, pulling out a folder. Would you like to see the receipts? I know how much you love verifying people's financial status. She flinched at the reminder of her own words. I deserve that. I don't understand. After everything I said, everything I did, why help make my wedding perfect? I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd quietly conquered while she was busy playing society princess. Because you're still my sister, Victoria. And sometimes success means being big enough to rise above petty revenge. But it wasn't just the wedding, was it? She pressed. James's promotion last month, the bonus that helped with the down payment on our house. All approved by his mysterious Sue, I confirmed. Though I should mention, those were based on his actual merit, not his connection to you. When he's not trying to impress people, James is quite talented. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, threatening to ruin her pre-makeup preparations. All these years I thought I was the successful one, the one who had everything figured out. But you built an empire while I was just playing pretend. The difference, I said quietly, is that I never needed everyone to know I was successful. You spent so much time cultivating the appearance of success that you forgot to build something real. A commotion outside drew our attention. Our parents had arrived. Through the open door, I could hear our mother directing florists while our father complained about the cost of everything, not knowing his struggling daughter had paid for it all. They don't know, do they? Victoria asked. About Aurora Capital, about who you really are? They'll find out today, I replied. I think it's time for the whole family to understand that success doesn't always wear designer labels and demand attention. Victoria stood, smoothing her robe with trembling hands. The seating arrangement. Where will you be? I smiled, remembering her original plan to hide me away if I dared to show up. Don't worry, sister dear. I'll be at the family table, right where the CEO of the company that employs half the wedding party should be. She turned to leave, then paused. Emma, I'm sorry. Not just for the wedding but for everything. All the years I spent looking down on you, mocking your choices. I know, I said simply. Now go finish getting ready. You have a wedding to star in. After she left, I opened my laptop to check the latest Aurora Capital acquisitions. The merger documents for another tech company, one owned by Victoria's maid of honor, who'd been particularly vocal about my embarrassing poverty, were ready for Monday morning. The wedding itself was exactly the fairy tale Victoria had dreamed of. The ballroom transformed into a crystal-draped winter wonderland, every detail perfect, every moment choreographed. But there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The society guests who'd been prepared to whisper about the poor sister instead found themselves sharing space with one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. The bridesmaids who'd followed Victoria's lead in excluding me now realized they were networking with someone who could make or break their careers. During the reception, I watched Victoria and James share their first dance. They moved differently now, the desperate need to prove their status replaced by something more genuine. Amazing how humility could improve one's posture. Our parents approached my table, both still processing the revelation of who their failing daughter had become. All this time, our mother began, tears in her eyes. "You thought what you wanted to think," I finished for her. "You saw what you expected to see. But why keep it secret?" our father demanded. "Why let us believe you were struggling?" I took a sip of champagne, the premium vintage I'd upgraded to without Victoria's knowledge. "Because you needed to learn that your definition of success wasn't the only one that mattered." Later that night, as the celebration wound down, I found Victoria alone on the terrace. She'd changed out of her massive wedding gown into a simpler dress for the after-party. "Thank you," she said quietly, looking out over the city lights. "Not just for the wedding, but for teaching me what real success looks like." I joined her at the railing. "Keep that lesson in mind when you return from your honeymoon. James's position at Meridian will be what he makes of it. No more, no less." She nodded, understanding the subtle warning. "And us? Where do we go from here?" "That depends," I replied. "Are you ready to be the sister of E.J. Morgan, rather than trying to be the successful sister everyone envies?" A small smile crossed her face. Genuine this time, not the practiced society smile she usually wore. "I think I'm ready to be Victoria, getting to know her sister Emma for who she really is."